Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and welcome to a brand new episode of Bionicle Fanon Reviews, the show where I review fan-created, canonized, or non-canonized Bionicle models and contest winners, which is going to be the topic of today's video. Now, previously we hosted here on Duckbricks the Dinosaurs of Bota Magna Fanon contest. We got hundreds of entries, narrowed it down to 12 finalists, and I am building and reviewing all 12 finalists to showcase here on the channel for all of you. And so today we will be taking a look at one of the finalists from the top 12 category of the large category of the Bionicle Dinosaurs of Bota Magna. I can't wait to get into this because there were so many incredible, unique, custom LEGO creations. And so, without further ado, let's jump right in to the review. Okay, so here we have the Titanicron by Maxilla. This was our third place winner of the Dinosaurs of Bota Magna Fanon contest. Absolutely a deserving winner because this is really a sight to behold. Now what's really cool about this is that a lot of effort was put into making sure it can, well, stand on its own. A lot of the issues that I did run into when recreating some of the finalists was that sometimes they're really fragile and they tend to fall over or just lose pieces here and there. But not this one, because despite its massive size, it takes a lot to make this topple over. First of all, that tail is absolutely massive, and the weight of the tail really balances out the weight of the front body here, making it pretty symmetrical all the way throughout in terms of weight distribution, so I can stand it up. As you can see, it is standing up totally okay, with the tail off the ground, that's not touching the ground, and the head not touching the ground, so it really does accurately stand on its two legs. Sure, there are maybe a couple points where it might be toppling over or is tending to bend, but for the most part, you can really get this in all sorts of different poses, and you really don't run any risk of it falling over. And the good thing is, if it does fall over, it's a really sturdy model, so you don't really need to worry about things falling off. Now, you see right there, nothing really happens when it does fall over. Let's just get this leg righted up again. But yeah, you can see here, this is a very, very sturdy model. And you really do have to kind of mess with the legs a little bit to get it to just stand up straight. But once you have it standing, it is totally okay. Like that. Look at that. So there are a lot of points of articulation here, and I just kind of want to start off. We'll start here and go all the way down. So first of all, with the head itself, you can see this is so big it's barely even fitting within my camera here, but you can open and close the jaw, which is done really nicely. It actually is really cool how they use the evoky piece or the mask of light to kind of act as the lower jaw, which is something I think is a very cool detail. You can really get some biting motion. One of my favorite things, and this is going a little bit into parts usages, but I love the usage of the Viscerac head as the front of the jaw here. It basically transforms this piece, which was meant to be a spider carapace, into the top of a T-Rex lizard-like head, which is no easy feat, but is done really well by the way that the teeth are mounted. I think that is very cool. Now the head itself can look upwards and downwards, so you can really get it maybe lunging downwards to get some prey, or you can have it be roaring upwards, kind of like in the traditional T-Rex style build type thing where you can, that doesn't even fit in my camera, but moving this upwards a bit, you can see that you can kind of look at him roaring outwards into the horizon. You can bend this part of the neck up and down, and thankfully this does actually articulate based on a piston here. This is one of the 06 Titan pistons, so your head is not going to be drooping anytime soon. This is a great amount of articulation, but it also is very, very stable, which is very nice. Moving onwards to the arms, there's something pretty funky about this because it actually has 4 arms, and that's not something I realized until building it myself. It was quite the odd setup, but yeah, as you can see here, going into the front of the body, he's got these 2 big arms, which seem kind of mechanical. You've got the silver claws. Each claw can be opened and closed like this. You've also got a ability to move the hands around so you can kind of be waving it around, move the elbows, and of course move these on pretty much any ball joint that you would want to do, so that makes a lot of sense to me. However, he also has these little hands as well. I don't really know what the deal is with these. I guess they're supposed to resemble the standard T-Rex hands that are very, very short and stubby. I think they're kind of funny because they're just little kind of limbs that stick out of the inside of the body, and maybe the model could have been originally designed to just have those as the front hands until the tail was beefed up so you could do larger hands, and these are kind of, you can think of it as evolutionary vestiges of the original hands before they got upgraded with armor and metals. So that's one cool way of looking at it. Now going into the body itself, the articulation continues with the legs here. Now the legs, it's a really satisfying way to move these around because you can really get these moving in pretty much any direction despite them being double jointed. Right here, this is a very, very nice way of doing things. Now you can also bend this back and forth like so you can bend the knee on the piston, and you also have another piston for these digitigrade legs here, so you can really articulate the foot back and forth and get this in all sorts of different poses, which I think is wonderful. The amount of articulation here is perfect. Moving onwards to the back of the model and the tail, one thing that is pretty interesting is that the builder actually offered the suggestion of attaching Technic lift arms here and here to lock the tail in place. I, however, like the ability to swoosh it around, so I have unlocked it so you can really kind of get this wiggling back and forth, which is really nice. Now, each segment of the tail is jointed, so as you can see here, you can move this up and down, but also side to side thanks to the flex of the friction ball joints. The same goes for here. Some great parts usages like the Metru torsos being used in the building construction of the tail, which I think is very cool. And of course, you've got the gold spikes continuing all the way around. Now, that about sums up the articulation. As you can see, quite a lot of articulation for this big boy right here. Now, the thing is that this is a very expensive model to recreate, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but going into the building techniques and parts usages. First of all, the color scheme is a classic, but it is a really good one. There's a reason why it is a common color scheme. Gold, dark red, and black really just looks good together, and I love the addition of some gunmetal gray armor pieces along the sides here, transitioning upwards to the more lighter silver, the pearl silver armor pieces on the top. It kind of feels like you're getting kind of layers and variations in the armor itself, but obviously the big emphasis is on the golden aspects of the detailing pieces. I like how the gold is, despite there being a lot of it used, it's kind of limited in the ways that it's used. You've got a little bit of gold underneath the arms, you've got the golden feet, and then pretty much all the gold is just relegated to the spikes on the top of the creature itself, making it really feel like an accent color rather than something that feels a little bit too overwhelming. Now, I'm very thankful for LEGO for bringing back the Golden Borak eyepiece and introducing it on Pick-a-Brick. You can buy it online right now from LEGO.com directly for a few cents, because otherwise this would have been insanely expensive to recreate, because previously these were basically just exclusive to the Brutaka set, but thankfully I was able to get these from Pick-a-Brick. But yeah, you can see this is not a cheap model to make. Obviously, the Ernak spine, I think by itself costs like $100, $150 just for this one piece. So that really was a big, big thing. And then obviously the feet themselves, they use a lot of the exclusive gold recolors from the Brutaka sets. That's very, very rare here. Also, that gold piece, pretty much every single gold piece used here is either exclusive to Brutaka or to Ernak. So that's kind of a funny thing to see there. But then again, if you are on a budget, you can easily recreate this by swapping out the gold for, I don't know, dark red. You can use Hakan's spine. You can use all sorts of different colors. You can make it all silver if you wanted, silver and white. There's a lot of different color schemes you can do here, so you're not boxed into being forced to use the gold. I just, of course, had to get the gold because I wanted to accurately review the models that were submitted in the contest, but thankfully the rest of the pieces are not super hard to come by. You could switch this out for a different color if this was too expensive from the Titan Takanuva set. And all in all, this is a fairly affordable build in terms of the rest of the pieces, other than the gold, which just absolutely skyrockets the price. Now, in terms of the construction of this model, I am a big fan of the amount of effort that went into actually making this balanced. Again, it is no easy feat, and maybe it looks easier than it actually is to balance a creature of this size just on 2 legs. You could maybe do it a lot easier with 4 legs, because obviously it's not going to be falling over with that. But to mount 2 legs on this model and really make it balanced, look, that tail is off the ground. So this is just balancing on its own. That definitely took a lot of work, and that's really impressive to me, just how much engineering went into the tail, which typically is a part of the dinosaur that isn't really focused on too much. A lot of the tails for the other dinos of these contests are pretty simple, and obviously you can see a lot of the work went into the heads and the arms and the legs, and then the tails feel like an afterthought. But here the tail really does feel like it is part of the model and might be one of my favorite bits of the model, the way that you can see it taper from something very thick and chunky at the top and then slowly bend over and down to something that is a little bit skinnier. That is very, very impressive to me. I'm going to try to get this all in frame with the tail spread out there so you can just see the movement of the way that the pieces flow together, which is really, really impressive. So I'm a big fan of the way that the tail was put together. That's not to say, though, that the rest of the building techniques are not good. In fact, this is a very impressively built dinosaur. The legs being as sturdy as they are is a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. I am really, really liking the fact that they are this sturdy. And of course, the arms themselves, I kind of like the little tiny arms there. It adds a little bit of character to the model. And the torso itself was constructed in a really interesting way. Bringing this a little bit closer to the camera, you can see that you've got all sorts of angles going on. From the top-down view, there's a lot of technical construction being put together here that really does make this feel like a very solid mass. And even going on to the bottom, it is fully armored up on the underside of the creature itself using the Knight's Kingdom armor there, and then you've got these Paraka feet and of course the Jalarmari armor piece here. There's just a lot of stuff going on and a lot of different layers to the way that the armors are done for this creature that really makes this look fantastic to me. Now, moving on from the building techniques and talking a little bit about aesthetics. Aesthetics, I think, are quite good in terms of the color scheme and overall look and feel of the model. If there was one thing I would change, maybe that color scheme of dark red, black, and gold is a little overused. I feel like I've seen a lot of creations with this particular color scheme, which isn't a bad thing. It just feels a little bit standard for what you would expect to see. It's a very similar color scheme to the Cardass Dragon from the other Bionicle set line. Maybe it would have been interesting to do something a little bit different with the color scheme, but again, it is LEGO and it is Bionicle. You can just switch out the colors to whatever you want. If you want to color this white and black, I think all these pieces exist in white, or most of them, and you could swap them out if you needed to. So you could do all sorts of crazy stuff with the colors, and that is one thing I do like about this model. More than any other model, you can really change around the look and feel by just swapping out the armor pieces, maybe keeping the black kind of bits and pieces that are structural, but you can just swap these out, and a lot of these came in different colors, so you can really play around with it. I saw someone make a green version of this, which looked really cool. They basically just swapped out all these pieces for dark green and regular green. That looked really cool. Someone physically recreated it after the contest happened, so all in all, lots of creative potential with this build, and that's why the aesthetics, I think, are really solid to me, because stripping away the colors, this is an aesthetically good-looking dinosaur. It is well-proportioned, it stands up, it's playable, and because of that, you can basically make it any color you want, save on the cost or whatnot, and really just make the dinosaur your own. And thank you for Maxilla for providing the studio file and the actual instructions on how to make this, because anyone can now recreate this themselves, and you can go to my Discord to find those files. With that, I think it's time that we bring over some representative samples from the Bionicle universe to sum up this review and do some good old size comparisons with this model. This is going to be a really fun one to kind of see just how it stacks up. Now, the tail is going to have to be compressed a little bit there just to fit in our size comparisons, but for this, much like the other Bionicle dinosaur Fanon reviews, I've brought alongside a random Agori Ranu, which the color scheme actually works out quite well there, so that's how he scales there. And I've also brought along a standard Glatorian Akar, so you can see exactly how they scale up next to each other. Now that is looking pretty good to me. It is not actually that large compared to the standard figure. Obviously a lot more complex, a lot more pieces goes into it, but you can imagine this as maybe an overgrown steed. It's not a colossally large thing where maybe it feels out of proportion with the other characters, but I can easily see this maybe being tamed by a Gori or ridden, because this is something I've tried to do with all of the other dinosaur reviews, but just place Nagori on the top and try not to knock him over. I can't quite reach in there because of he's pushed so far back in my studio. I'm really trying to reach my hands over and get the Agori on top of his back here. Come on, there we go. Look at that. That is really cool. Let's get him to stand up again, reset the legs, and yeah, that is a really cool thing, and thankfully he doesn't throw off the weight distribution that much, so he can realistically ride the creature. That looks really good to me because obviously the dark red goes alongside the creature itself. You could probably have Glatorian riding it as well, and you can easily see this as a steed or tameable creature for maybe some characters on the on the planet of Bota Magna, or you could see it as a full-on predator. It's got the sharp claws, the sharp teeth, and looks like a T-Rex in the way that it's built with a very unique head, and you can really just do all sorts of stuff with this that I really like, and I think it scales great next to the other characters. It absolutely retains that Bionicle aesthetic, really focusing on integrating G1 pieces, mostly just G1 and Technic. I don't see any other pieces. There are no system pieces, there's no CCBS, it's just hoses, Technic, and G1 Bionicle parts, really making this feel very congruent for the model that it is. But with that, I think we have summed up our look at this massive Titanicron model. A big fan of this model and absolutely deserving of the third place win by Maxilla Makes. You can check him out in the description below. And I think that about sums this up. Let's just talk about the final points. Posability, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10 because this is probably one of the easiest ones to pose out of all the dinosaurs. It doesn't keep falling over, it really holds its own weight. Very impressive in that regard. Sure, sometimes it tends to be a little top heavy and fall forwards if you don't have the legs set up perfectly right, but that's very minor, and it doesn't do that often, which is why it's a 9 out of 10 and not 10. You also unfortunately can't move the head side to side. I didn't mention that when I was talking about the neck, but that is a little bit of a con to me. It would have been nice to be able to actually move the head to make him look side to side, but it's not that big of a deal. It really just only needs the up and down motion, and of course if you really want to, just, I don't know, detach one of the ball joints to make him look to the side, so you can really play around with it and do different things. Moving onwards to building techniques, very impressive building techniques here. This was all pretty much legal connections being used for a mock to use all legal connections, really make it come together. It felt like putting together an actual Bionicle set in the way that especially the legs were done. It felt like just a more advanced version of some of the Titan Bionicle stuff we've gotten. So all in all, this was a great model to put together. 9 out of 10 for the building techniques as well, and the same goes for aesthetics. This is one of my favorite dinosaurs. I think that the aesthetics are really good in the way that it actually forms the good shaping of a T-Rex-like build, and of course, as I mentioned, you can change out the colors to help with the price a bit and really make the dinosaur your own. Lastly, believability in universe. I mean, just look at that. Look at Anagori riding him. That looks really cool to me. 10 out of 10. Easy done, fits in the world, is to scale with the rest of the characters, and looks fantastic. And with that, I think we have summed up our look at the awesome Titanicron by Maxilla Makes. Thank you so much for watching these videos, and a big thank you to everybody who has been involved in making these Bionicle Fanon contests a reality. I will be making my way through reviews of all the dinosaurs, all the winners like the Lariska model, and of course the Toanadiki stuff, and the Golden Skin Being, and all the other contests we have coming up and currently running. So much stuff I have to review, and this is a really great way to express creativity in the Bionicle fandom. I'm happy to be a part of it, and I'm even happier that so many people have embraced them and really have been entering the contests like crazy. We've gotten over 100 entries for almost all the contests. We've gotten so many voters, and it's just been such a fun time. Thank you for being here, and yeah, stay tuned to Duckworks for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye for now.